There's a strange thing psychologists noticed. The people who stop believing in God are rarely the ones who never cared about meaning. Often, they're the ones who cared the most, so much that the answers they were given stopped being enough for them. Think about how it usually happens. It's not always a dramatic loss of faith. Sometimes it's quieter than that. They're at a funeral, and the words that are supposed to comfort them just sound like words. They're in a conversation about suffering, and the explanation someone offers feels like it's protecting an idea instead of answering the question. Something in them notices the gap, and once they notice it, they can't unnotice it. Cognitive scientists who study belief have found something interesting here. Humans run on two different systems of thinking. One is fast, intuitive, pattern-seeking. It wants a story, an agent, a reason behind things. The other is slower, analytical, and uncomfortable with unfinished stories. People who lean heavily on that second system tend to ask questions that intuition alone can't satisfy anymore. This isn't about intelligence. It's about which mental system a person defaults to when the world doesn't add up. Here's the first pattern. They stop accepting comfort just because it's comforting. Someone tells them everything happens for a reason, and instead of feeling soothed, they feel a small resistance. That's not coldness. That's the brain refusing to let comfort override accuracy. Most people think skeptics feel nothing. In reality, they often feel it more. They just refuse to let the feeling write the conclusion. Second pattern, they start needing evidence before they let themselves feel certain. Psychologists call this a low tolerance for unsupported certainty. It shows up outside religion too, in how they read the news, in how they evaluate a friend's promise, in how they trust a new relationship. They're not paranoid. They've just learned that certainty without proof has cost them before. Third pattern, they feel a quiet loneliness that's hard to explain to people who still believe. Attachment researchers have actually studied this. For many people, the idea of God functions like an attachment figure, a steady presence to return to when life gets frightening. When that's gone, they're not just losing a belief, they're losing a source of psychological safety they have to rebuild elsewhere, usually inside themselves. That's a heavier task than most people realize. Fourth pattern, they get tired of being asked, then what's the point? As if meaning only counts if someone assigned it. What's actually happening is a shift from inherited meaning to constructed meaning. Existential psychologists describe this as one of the harder developmental tasks a mind can take on. It's not emptiness, it's responsibility. None of this makes them cold, arrogant, or broken. It doesn't mean they feel less wonder, less love, less awe at being alive. It usually means the opposite. They refused an easy peace so they could look for a real one. Here's the reframe. Disbelief isn't the absence of a search. It's often the continuation of one, a search that got too honest to stop at the first answer offered. The discomfort isn't a malfunction. It's what it feels like when a mind refuses to trade truth for comfort, even when comfort would be easier to carry. Maybe the real difference was never between people who believe and people who don't. Maybe it was always between people who stopped asking and people who couldn't. If this described someone who's quietly felt this but never had words for it, they're probably someone who thinks more deeply about these questions than most people around them realize. Follow along. There's a lot more here worth understanding about how minds like this actually work.